people are not inflation idiots, and the elites are acting like people are. And it's funny. I see it. I see it all the time because I'm around in that circle because I have a couple of degrees. People with a few degrees, these so-called intellectuals, think they know better than the average American, the average person, and they're literally, well, not literally, but figuratively peeing on people and saying it's raining. They're telling people that inflation is not bad, everything's getting better, and the economy, and look at these numbers and all these other things that's going on. But when we normal people go to the grocery stores and purchase things, we know that things are more expensive, no matter how much these so-called intellectuals try to tell us. And I know, like I said, I'm in these circles. I see these people, and they act like normal average people are idiots. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram in my merch store. Also, check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for news as well. All right, let's talk about this news. Now, this comes from Zero Hedge by way of the Epic Times, Jeffrey Tucker, and Tyler Durden. We all know that that's not the writer's real name there, but the emphasis is by Tyler. All right. So let's talk about this news. The article reports that there's something about employed intellectuals, and myself being one of them. Even though I don't really run in those circles, I'm technically what they call an intellectual because of my degrees or whatnot. But when they are trashing popular wisdom and perceptions of regular people, they are truly in their element. And again, I've seen it. I've seen it. I used to run in these circles. But they love nothing better. It's a way for them to show off their superior understanding, flash their credentials, and dazzle others with their merit of their time and expense in schooling. It justifies their social standing and income, and it assures their jobs. Where would we be without them? Wallowing in ignorance, no doubt. The trouble is that very often the popular wisdom is correct, whereas the intellectuals are wrong. I've seen it time and time again. Um, we've seen many examples of this recently with regard to inflation. It seems that most people think it is getting worse and going in the wrong direction. A recent poll of swing state voters show that 74% of people say exactly this. By wrong direction, plain English means prices are not going down, but rather still going up faster than one would desire. In fact, the commodities market seem to agree. Look at the record gold and Bitcoin prices. Even the Federal Reserve is worried. But the Wall Street Journal, Greg LP explains that the notion that inflation is still bad and even worsening is, quote, simply not true. I'm not stating an opinion. This isn't something on which reasonable people can disagree. If hard economic data count for anything, we can say unambiguously that inflation has moved in the right direction in the past year. So if that's the case, Greg LP or IP, Greg Ip. I said LP. Sorry, that's an I. Greg Ip. Sorry, Ip. If that's the case, why are prices still expensive? Why does it still cost $20 for a single meal at a fast food restaurant? You pay for a family, you're looking at $60. How come that? How come the price of gas is still expensive? How come everything we purchase is still expensive if that's the case? If things have went in the right direction for a year, how come the cost of things aren't coming down? He goes on to explain that over 12 months, the pace at which inflation is worsening is getting worse at a slower pace than previously. So let me explain this a little bit. They're saying, oh, inflation is still happening. It's just slowing down. It's not as fast as it was happening. But we still have inflation, though. So stuff is still going to continue to go up. It's just going to go up at a slower pace. These people are so disingenuous when it comes to this. They want to make it look good so bad for Biden that they're being intellectually dishonest. But this is what IP calls moving in the right direction. You can tell yourself that as you put on less weight this month than last, but it would not be a good idea to confuse this with losing weight. And that's a great analogy. That's a great analogy. That's basically what it is. But the thing is, but that's not even it though. It's not just that you're not you're actually gaining weight. You're just gaining weight slower than you were previously. That's what it is. But as for prices going down, it sniffly dismisses the idea. The price level rarely goes down. Really? Really? As I remember, prices went down under Trump. I guess that was just a one off though. So he's basically saying when prices go high, they stay high. Oh, and if someone asks how your diet is going, you can do the same and tell them with absolute certainty that actually losing weight is out of the question. Mr. Ip is certain that a move from 6% to 3% inflation is a fall, even though it is really only a slower pace of rising and therefore not really an improvement. That's what I was saying. That's what I was alluding to. It's not an improvement. Inflation is still happening. It's just happening at a slower rate. So it's still going up. It's not getting any better. He would see this if the numbers were different. Um, what if inflation were running at 40% and then rising only 35%? Would it dare you go to print an article? I'm sorry, would it dare go to print an article claiming that inflation is improving? Not likely. Sorry, but most people think that improvement and even repaired inflation would restore prices to their 2020 level. That's not going to happen, but that's actually what most people would like. And I agree. My own sense is that many people are only coming around now to the realization that what happened to us has done permanent damage to purchasing power. It's not a good sign that the Biden administration seems to think that the solution is jawboning package. The solution is jawboning package sizing back up. In any case, it's not even necessarily true that the price of increase is improving. The latest read of the official CPI, the Consumer Price Index, shows that it is going up higher than it did in June 2023. So even by that standard, the popular wisdom is more correct than the experts. By some measure, inflation is worsening at a faster pace. And they don't tell you that. I mean, these people are so disingenuous, but they want to cape for Biden so bad that they do what they can to try to spin it. They spin it as the best they could, and but no one's believing it. That's the thing. That's why they're so upset, because no one is believing in their bull crap. Again, because we live day to day, every day, with inflation, so we know what's going on. We go to the grocery store every day and look at the prices, and we see the prices are not coming down. They are, in fact, still continuing to go up. Also, we are a bit gun shy. Who is to say that the next round of brutal inflation is not waiting just around the corner in a repeat of the 1970s? And have a look at food prices, up 35 to 50% since 2019 and still rising. Again, it's still going up. So how is it getting better? It's not even of this world to tutting people for feeling that this much of an increase in 5 year amounts to getting worse. Or just to have a broad look at prices generally, no matter what the experts say, we are daily slammed with sticker shock. That's my point. That's what I was just alluding to. Remember that people do not buy all the products and services in the CPI daily. They encounter each price increase only in the course of their usual buying habits. It has been nothing but bad news every time you take out your wallet. Every time. Like I've I prepare myself and take a deep breath. I used to complain every time. I used to complain every time I go purchase something like, oh my gosh, I can't believe a burger costs this much now. I can't believe. And so now I just stop complaining because I go in knowing that stuff is just expensive now. And that's not how it's supposed to be. That's why I said bring back Trump to fix this darn economy. But when major journalistic venues come out and say, oh, it is not that bad, so stop complaining, it only discredits them. In addition, it complains as follows, quote, by more than 2 to 1, 56% to 25%, respondents said the economy had gotten worse rather than gotten better over the past 2 years. This is difficult to square with robust employment growth, unemployment near its lowest in half a century, or growth in gross domestic product, which actually accelerated last year. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Here again, the popular wisdom is smarter than the experts. The jobs data has already experienced a major debunking. Every time they bring out the job numbers, it's optimistic. And then later on down the road, like a few weeks later, they end up changing the numbers and say, well, it's not exactly like we thought. They do it every time. But full-time positions are giving way to part-time positions, mostly held by immigrant populations. This is a major factor as to why the establishment and household surveys has diverged so much over the last several years. The job market is not healthy. It is sick with the continued lack of labor participation and worsening conditions for professional workers. It's not obvious from a superficial look at the data, but it is clear from a deeper look. Even the Wall Street Journal admits this in a separate piece. The household employment figures haven't just shown slowing job growth in recent months, but outright deterioration. Oh, another corrective comes from the Philadelphia Fed. Quote, in the aggregate, 10,500 net new jobs were added during the period rather than the 1,121,500 jobs estimated by the sum of the state. The USCES estimated net growth of 1,047,000 jobs for the period. Now, by now, you surely also know that the GDP data cannot be trusted. Of course not. it is ginned up by government debt spending, without which the United States would likely already be in a recession. Again, I think we're already in a recession. Y'all know I've talked about this before. But this little tool of analysis was invented in the 1940s and heavily informed by bad economic theory, but it somehow survives as a credible estimate of output. It absolutely is not. So let's return to inflation now. It's not just the rising prices, that the rising prices are bad and eat into the standard of living. It's also the case that the current CPI is widely underestimated. Adding in the interest-based costs of borrowing puts last year's inflation rate at 18%. Wow, which is far worse than we ever saw in the 1970s. Wow, and that's saying something. If we add that, if we add to that why inflation used to be calculated complete with the correct estimate of health insurance costs, we are going further still. We could be looking at a 20+% on an annualized basis. All the assurances we get from official economists that life is great is great achieve absolutely nothing in terms of convincing the public that what they are seeing all around them is not true. You know, don't believe your lying ass eyes. The instincts of the public are absolutely correct, contrary to the 1,000 articles pouring out of the legacy media that say otherwise. I've always enjoyed Greg Ipps' writing simply because he is a trained economist and speaks the language well. It's sad to me to see his writing go the direction of becoming straight up Biden administration propaganda. That's exactly what it sounds like to me. Remember that line about how inflation was merely transitional? Remember that was the buzzword for like an entire quarter. Transitional. They are still saying that after 3 years. Wow. So let's face it. Many such voices have disappointed us over these past few years, as many journalists and intellectuals have put career over integrity in their jobs. We know this and see this every day. Still, it never stops disappointing me. Regardless, the public is not listening. Thank goodness for that. People are waking up to the BS, to the propaganda. I would say the majority of Americans is hip to this, and I'm surprised. But really, should I be surprised? Because normal people go grocery shopping and make purchases every day. So hopefully they're not so blind where they continue to believe in the propaganda, even though when they go anecdotally and purchase these things are expensive. Indeed, they have stopped reading, which is why the payrolls of mainstream venues keep shrinking more and more. No one believes them anymore. Meanwhile, as the intellectuals scribble their excuses, public fury is on the rise. But let me know what you think about this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, and check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time.